If you've ever looked at a map of the United States, something is immediately pretty strange. That is, Alaska. Alaska takes up a whopping 17% of the area of the entire United States, but it isn't even connected to the rest of the country. In fact, it is only 2 miles away from Russia, but 520 from the closest point in the contiguous US. And it's only that close because of a thin arm of islands and fjords that stretches down the Pacific coast. If that arm wasn't part of Alaska, it would be over 1,000 miles away from the rest of the country. So why did America purchase this far-off piece of land in the first place? When they bought Alaska in 1867, they had no idea of the vast oil reserves beneath it, and sure, it is a beautiful state, but why on earth would America spend what is today $125 million on a Russian colony where only 60,000 people lived? It turns out, Alaska was the only successful part of a gigantic, unfinished plan. A plan that, if had been completed, would have made the United States by far the largest country on Earth. Welcome to That Is Interesting. I'm your host, Carter. Today, America's crazy plan to buy Canada, Greenland, and Iceland. In the 1860s, the idea of manifest destiny, that the United States should eventually own all of North America, was a concept that many Americans agreed with. Abraham Lincoln and Andrew Johnson's Secretary of State, William Seward, was one of them. While many Americans were looking west towards the Pacific, Seward had his eyes north. Above the United States, expansive Arctic lands were filled with abundant lumber, fish, and minerals, which the U.S. could make a fortune off of. They all belonged to colonial powers as well, with Canada a part of Britain, Alaska a part of Russia, and Greenland and Iceland belonging to Denmark. Seward's plan went something like this. They would somehow convince Russia to sell them Alaska, and then convince Denmark to sell Greenland and Iceland. With America surrounding them in all directions, Canada would then voluntarily choose to leave Britain and join the United States. He envisioned a nation made of independent colonies, not just British ones, but all of North America's colonies. Seward had been to both Alaska and Canada, and he sent a man named Benjamin Pierce to Greenland and Iceland to create a report. Pierce found Greenland to be incredibly appealing to purchase, but he was much more skeptical about Iceland, which he found cold and bleak, writing in his final report that few countries present a less inviting aspect than Iceland. But Seward was still set on the purchase, deciding that although located in Europe, it was not too far from Greenland, and most of its population sat on its west coast, facing North America. Seward's immediate goal was to get Alaska. Bordering Canada, he worried that Britain would try to take it first. Luckily for him, Russia actually asked him to buy it. They had lost lots of money fighting war and couldn't afford to keep Alaska anymore. Just like Seward, they didn't want Britain to have it, so they sold it to him for $7 million, or what would today be worth $125 million. It became the 49th state. Britain was eager to keep Canada out of American hands, however. A few days before Seward bought Alaska, Britain granted Canada independence, making it a sovereign nation. Seward thought there was still a chance, as the large British territories of Rupert's Land and British Columbia had not joined the new country of Canada yet, and he still hoped that Denmark could be convinced to give up Greenland and Iceland. But it was not to be. Americans thought Seward was crazy for buying Alaska. They thought the purchase was a useless waste of money and often called it Seward's folly or Johnson's icebox. President Johnson lost re-election soon after, and Seward, who hoped to be appointed Secretary of State by President Ulysses S. Grant, was turned down. His time in political office was over, and his dream of buying the North American Arctic was left incomplete. 2 years after he left office, Rupert's Land joined Canada, and a year later, British Columbia joined as well. In 1944, Iceland gained independence from Denmark. Greenland is still an autonomous territory of Denmark, but may become a sovereign nation any day now. Their only requirement for independence is that a majority of the island supports it in an independence referendum. Polls have shown that 64% of the island is in favor of independence, but they just haven't decided to have an independence referendum yet. Seward's master plan for the United States to become an Arctic empire, possessing over 8 million square miles from Alaska to Iceland, was left never completely finished, with Alaska the only remaining piece of an incomplete puzzle. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you learned something new. Subscribe for more content like this. I cover the countries, cities, people, and places of the world and beyond. These videos will leave you saying, "That is interesting."